I remember at one point you get a very glamorous kind of position. You were like flying around with private jet and go to all these fancy places like presidential suite. Can you explain a little bit what was this position about? And how did it come to you and like what kind of people you were working with like in that point?
Very interesting journey for sure. Yeah, and I had this random opportunity to work with the family member or the father of a long-time friend that I grew up with, who I'm actually like played volleyball with. He was my volleyball coach, and come from a background of business. And then later on, I found out their father and uncles were considered like business moguls in Southeast Asia in the 80s and 90s, where they were the ones who essentially opened up Vietnam's market to the rest of the Western world. And a big part of it was bringing in Petro-Canada, Coca-Cola, Heineken beer, and Red Bull, and not just getting them established in Vietnam, but essentially like to all the other Southeast Asia countries. And they became like very, very, very successful in that aspect. I didn't know this for a very long time because they're very like humble. They don't talk about it. They don't brag about it, right? But later on, I had the opportunity to learn like more about that. Like when I went to visit my friend who was living in Vietnam at the time for business, and I learned from the locals, and then that they actually like they're a big deal here, right? And I was like, oh well, like I didn't know that, right? So then about a year or so later, or soon later, like I had an opportunity to reconnect and meet with their family members again, and then just one thing led to another. I had a opportunity to essentially like work closely with my friend's dad as an executive assistant side, just to kind of help to learn and help him out with certain things that he needed support with, and also like because he was at a time where he was also just focused on like health and wellness and trying to improve certain areas of health, and so at that time he was already less involved in the big business kind of dealings. Like he was more on the kind of semi-retired or retire. So I had an opportunity to work with him for about 6 months, 6 to 7 months on that. Yeah, we're really like it just randomly all of a sudden it's like from running a do what you love and basically essentially not have any resources to kind of pay myself, and was still working on other contracts and jobs to like, sustain myself, and not really having gone on any vacations or any trips or anything kind of like nice, like and then for many years, I think at that time it would have been already 4 or 5 years, I think, at least like 5 years at the time of like do what you love, going through initial hardships and struggles. All of a sudden it's like next week, all of a sudden I'm like in a private jet. I'm like, okay, I'm just like, like they're like, like we're going to this place, like come to the South Terminal of YVR. I'm like, there's a South Terminal at YVR? Like, and then they're like the private lane. You just go drive up, and then they'll let you in, and then and you park, and then you just walk up to the runway. I'm like, okay, cool. And that's how it kind of just like how big that kind of just randomly experiences that I was blessed with, to experience. And then and then basically like for 6 months, and so I was just kind of in this like I felt like I was in like a different world, different universe, because I was living and working in their world. Because I feel like for a long time, and I think for a lot of young people too, like that you from the glam you see on TV, Hollywood, and all that stuff, like you are kind of taught or led to believe, right, through an informal societal education, right? That's what you're supposed to be working towards, and like that's what makes you happy, blah blah blah, right? That's what society teaches us. But then like it was really strange because when I like was in those kind of situations and environment. And of course, it was like super awesome to be surrounded by nice stuff, but I felt like it just wasn't it. And that was a very strange feeling. I was like, and by all means, like good for those people, that were able to like somehow, one way or another, to have all these things. But at least to me, it just didn't really feel like, whoa, that's really not what like I should be working towards. I don't know. It just felt like for a brief moment that like if I wanted to, I felt like I probably could have like stayed and worked in that lifestyle and world for maybe forever, right? And a lot of people say my life could have literally been changed with an opportunity like that, because you can just go get your realtor license, right? And then you don't have to even practice because we have to make investments. But instead of like going to like other realtors, we just literally like we can like use your license, right? You'll be managing investments and like, certain kind of business aspect of things where dealing with kind of properties and things like those. The life that I was essentially being kind of promised, essentially it was like living comfortably in like a multi-millionaire type of environment, and my purpose was to basically serve like their needs for in business and internal affairs. They only would entrusted a few people what to do, right? And that meant completely giving up whatever other commitment that I had. If you ask 100 people, I'm pretty sure 99 would tell them like, hey, you should have gone with the other direction.
Yeah.
Just dropped everything else, like, screw all these things that you're doing. Just like, who cares about these people? But what really kind of stuck with me, or I couldn't get over it, was just like, even though I was surrounded by all these things, I felt really, at least myself, I felt really lonely. I felt empty. I didn't really feel I had a purpose there. That's probably what it felt like. And that defied logic, right? Even though logically, it was telling me, oh, this is a good opportunity. But like something in my heart and soul or in the gut or whatever didn't really enjoy like who I would have had to let go and who I would have to become to serve a different purpose. Because it's my life and whatever purpose that I was going to give it, right? And then so, and the other reason too, it's like I just felt like even though I was surrounded by all these material things still, but it wasn't mine and it wasn't something I really worked towards. Like I didn't earn it. It just felt like I didn't really deserve that. I was still in my mid-20s and was like, okay, well, could I picture my purpose for the rest of my next 40, 50, 60 years to be like, and then basically like having to give up like whatever all these other things that I learned and purpose that is discovered, and basically had to just walk away from it, right? And then that part I kind of took away in the end. The awesome material things, like although it would still be awesome, like, it made me kind of like also learn that, you know what, it's okay to also like enjoy that when you've worked for it, when you feel like you deserve it and it's yours. I would love that still, and it made me understand it's possible to do that. Society is always misled to thinking if you have all these material things then you're just successful. But that's the opposite. If you're successful first through whatever you do, then all these other things can become possible. Not the other way around. Because if it came to you the other way around, you'll be still very lost because you just feel a deep sense of unsatisfaction and emptiness, versus if you worked for it and the other way around. So again, I think it's probably meant to happen because it really taught me some very, very valuable things and experiences that I would never, ever, ever would have dreamed of in a million years. So for that, I feel very blessed, and I have nothing ill to say. No ill feelings, no hard feelings about any of it. And I'm still forever grateful about the opportunity, right? It's just like, as a 25 or 26, whoever I was at the time, it was every kid's dream to like walk out from a private jet and have like a fleet of Rolls-Royces in front of you to just like ready to pick you up to like transport you to the hotel, right? Like, it just like seemed like a movie, but at the same time, it's the sense of satisfaction you get when it's not yours, versus when it is like yours. Like it's two completely different feeling, right? It just felt like going with a life that I didn't really deserve versus a life that I feel like I'm purposefully kind of experiencing.
But I think to that note, that was one of the story I find it very inspiring, because you really clear about what you want to do and you really understand like what's your purpose in this world.